Hey guys, it's Christine, also known as IvyWinter. Thank you for joining me for another Disney video. Today we're actually going to the other coast because I had a request for a video from Tam Freeman. Tam asked me for my tips for planning a quick weekend at Disneyland as someone who obviously lives on the East Coast and whose only experiences at Disneyland have been quick weekends. I've often had to think of how to make the most of the time that I have, even if it doesn't seem very long. So I wanted to share some of my tips that have been implemented when I've been planning for short weekends. Both of my trips that I've experienced there have only been 2 days, so talk about the shortest of the shortest weekends. So this is looking at it from the lens of a couple of days. Maybe you have 3 days, maybe that's the longest stretch of time, 2.5 days, but it is a lot to try to get done in just a short amount of time, and I find that it takes a little bit more legwork than maybe a more leisurely Disneyland trip would. So there's a few things to think about before you start planning and while you're there that'll make the 2 days or 2+ days the best that they can be. And I still think you can have a really great time at Disneyland even if your trip is very short or it's connected to another part of a bigger California trip and you're just trying to sneak some days in. I think you can still have a blast. So my first tip is going to be to dedicate a day to each park at minimum. So if it is that 2-day trip, then each park gets its own full day. If you have 2.5 days or 3 days, then you might want to consider where do you want to go back to. Honestly, there are more attractions at Disneyland than there are at Disney's California Adventure, so naturally I would say give your extra time to Disneyland. Then again, that has everything to do with what you're interested in, so I don't want to say that's cut and dry, but I think in terms of time management and how much there is to do at each park, it probably makes the most sense to give more time to Disneyland over California Adventure if you can do it. If you're like me, you have 2 days, then each day should be dedicated to each park. We did not park hop because we just really wanted to get the most out of each park and kind of give it its due. On that, I think you should really plan that full day there, meaning, you know, morning to evening. You can have breaks, obviously. We did a break at a hotel. We've done breaks at Downtown Disney, which is so easy to walk over to and chill at, but basically dedicating that full day to each park. And then that brings me to my next step, which is to get up early. And this was something that I failed at with my last trip. We did it with my first one. We got there so early, park opening, hit so many things in those first couple of hours that the rest of our days were a little more chill. Like, we didn't have to run around as much. This recent trip, it was impossible to get my husband up early, so we were getting to the park about an hour after opening, and just that hour was a huge difference, especially because we were there for Columbus Day weekend, so it was a holiday, there was more people, but I'm sure even on a regular day, you're gonna find that you're gonna do way more in the first hour or two than if you take your time and you get there a little later, so just suck it up, get some sleep the nights before, and wake up early. I would also say to take advantage of MaxPass, especially when you have such a limited amount of time. It's $10 per person on your ticket every day, but if you're only going for 2 days, then each person's only paying like $20. If you're going for 3 days, $30. I think that that extra cost is worth it because you are going to be able to make fast passes on the app on your phone. You are going to be able to have a bit more flexibility in what you're going to get. You do not have to run physically to a fast pass kiosk to get fast passes, which is a huge time consuming task, and sometimes you have to split up the party to do it, and it's this whole thing. Doing MaxPass is going to be so much easier. The bonus of that is if you spend that money, you're getting all of your photos for that day that you bought it for free, which is a really big bargain. So if you're a person who really likes to download and keep your ride photos, or if you want to stop and take more photos with photographers on the parks, this is the way to do it. Get your MaxPass, get your fast passes, and then also get your photos. It's a really, really good deal. My next tip is to map out your priorities. So we went to each park with a priority list of what rides we wanted to do, and we made sure that those were the things we went for first, and then after we would do what we could do, and you know, whether we got on certain things or not, we wouldn't be as upset because we made sure to prioritize the things that mattered the most to us. So California Adventure, that was like Radiator Springs Racers, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, and Credit Coaster. And also catching Paint the Night. So knowing that those were some priorities for us, we made sure to get MaxPasses for what we needed. We made sure to line up for Paint the Night. We made sure to just make that the things that we wanted to focus on the most, and then if we got to go on other things after the fact, great. Same thing with Disneyland. Find the rides that you really want to see first. Make sure you get those MaxPasses in. If you don't, that you line up for those first, and then kind of go with the flow for the rest of the day and see what else that you can hit. That way you feel satisfied that you got to do the things that you really wanted to do, and there's less disappointment at the end of the day because you made the effort to see the things that you really wanted. And because you're going to be running around so much for a couple of days and trying to pack it all in, I say throw at least one sit-down meal in there just to slow down. I think it's necessary. I think it's needed. You know, we get so caught up in running around and trying to do everything that sometimes we burn ourselves out. It's really tiring. I think whether it's an in-park sit-down meal, it's a, you know, downtown Disney sit-down meal, just throw at least one sit-down lunch or a dinner somewhere in your plans so that you can slow down and relax and enjoy the company of whoever you're with, and really take in the atmosphere and the fact that you're in Disneyland, which is super exciting, and kind of slow it down so your days don't just seem like they're flying by. So those are some of my tips for very quick trips to Disneyland, and this is coming from not a local, someone who travels there, so it's a different perspective. I'm sure locals have all sorts of other ideas of what they do because they're driving in and they've got kind of different ideas of their plans. But for someone who has only been there twice and who has to actually get on a plane to get over there and only has so much time, these are some of the things that I found that have worked for me. If you have any tips for short Disneyland trips, we're talking 2, 3, maybe even 1 day. Some people do it, you know, they say, I got a day in my trip and I'm running to Disneyland. Crazy. Let me know your tips in the comments below. If you like this video, then like it. If you like me, you should subscribe. I make videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching and have a great rest of the day.